it's Ruth, otherwise known as the Delightful Planner, and I'm back again today with a slightly different video. Today I'm going to attempt to paint my traveller's notebook. Now the reason I'm doing this is it was beautifully made by Ugly Bug Plans, but part of the wonderfulness of leather is that each bit is unique, and the leather that I got hasn't quite taken the colour, and this was a custom colour I requested from them, as strongly as it has with my other Ugly Dory, which was a brown one, and that one's really rich and vibrant. And I've loved this, I've used it, I've battered it about, and I've tried playing with the colour. I've tried getting, there we are, all that, focus on that. So this is basically like a leather polish, and I got that, and you can see this is the colour of the polish on the inside, but obviously polish isn't really made to actually colour the leather, it's more to help maintain a colour of a leather. So I found that made a little difference. I should mention I then tried giving a bit of a vintage look to the leather, so I then sort of coloured in spots where it was a bit lighter than others over with a brown polish, and I did actually really like that vintage feel. So you can see I went around the edges and everything else, but again I just sort of kept looking back, and I kept visiting Amazon, which is such an enabler, and I kept looking at this leather paint, and eventually I've pulled the plug and I've bought it. And today we're going to experiment together as I attempt to paint this traveller's notebook this colour. Now, the original plan is going to be to try and paint it and leave the stitching this beautiful white colour. I mean, I used this planner to death last year, so I mean there is bits where it's faded and it's got a bit mucky, but that's just through general use. I'm going to try not to cover it with the paint, and we're going to see how this goes. So the first thing I'm going to do is take out this middle string so that it doesn't, I'm going to have to untie it, aren't I, get painted along with everything else. I'm also planning to paint the interior, but first of all I'm going to paint the exterior, and we're going to see how it goes. Could all go hideously wrong. There we go. So this is, I think they call it an Ugly Bug Stop, and it's to stop your elastics coming out the middle, which is such an ingenious idea. Now then, I've been watching good old YouTube for advice, and I'm going to follow Miss Vicky B and her guide, because she painted a Filofax mould, and then if it was good enough technique for a moulding, it's definitely going to be good enough for this traveller's notebook, because I still want it to be the beautiful notebook that it is, just a slightly different colour. So I know, oh, there's me knocking my desk. She recommended using a foam pad to begin with, picked up the wrong thing, and then join along with me. Oh, they actually put it in with a brush to begin with. Oh, look at that. It's a bit like putting nail varnish on. She did use a foam pad to begin with, though it was going on better with this brush actually. Right, I'll speed this bit up. Now then, you can see I'm just trying to be really careful around the edges, just to maintain the white stitches. I've tried two techniques. You'll have seen my little box where I started with the brush, and then I suddenly thought I'd try it with the foam pad, because I thought it may dry a bit streaky, because it looked like the brush strokes, you could see where I'd been with them, and I thought I could even it out, but this paint was drying so quick it had already started to dry in certain spots, and so it's lifted those. I'm not too worried at the moment, because obviously this is going to be more than a one coat job, so I'll even it out then. I'm going to let this have a good long time to dry between coats. One thing is, thankfully, it is so far proving easier to keep the stitching white than I expected, because obviously the stitches are raised slightly from when they have been sewn in. So it's quite easy to get really close and paint around them. I mean, there'll be odd spots where I've caught it ever so slightly, but I'm not worried about it. I mean, it's not going to be a work of art, it's going to be something that I use every day. And I'm loving this really bright colour. I've got to admit, I'm as guilty as anybody in the planner community of constantly looking for something a little bit new, a little bit different. And what I love about doing this is that it is still using something that I love, but just giving it a little update. Because otherwise it's always tempting to go running off and buying that next thing, but I've got a system that works for me, and I've got fantastic products already around me. I might as well make use of them. I just want to give this an extra pop with a nice bright colour, and then it's going to be living in my bag again every day. There we go. Now I think after last time, I've noticed, ironically enough, from when it dried, it seems to have evened out and not had the brush strokes. So I may just keep applying it with this small brush. There we go. You may have noticed while I'm painting this, I'm a lefty. And I've got to say, it is a nice thing when you're painting something flat like this. It doesn't get in the way. What do I mean doesn't get in the way? I wouldn't get in the way painting something like this anyway. Sorry, my brain's engaged with painting this at the minute. There we go. And now for the edges. So, have any of you, oh, we'll take a little bit more off because I want to keep this nice and light. So yes, have any of you painted one of your planners? Whether it's a traveller's notebook or a Filofax or other ring binder planner. Could be one of you watching this is already a pro at this and you've made fantastic works of art. In which case I probably should have asked for tips in the last video so that I would have known them when I was doing this. Right. But you can always share top tips in the comments and then others can read them as well. There we go. Oh, I think I might need to go in the opposite direction as well, just to make sure I'm getting everything there. I think less is definitely more when you're doing these edges. You don't want to have your paintbrush too overloaded. There we go. You'll have seen earlier when I suddenly remembered to remove my internal strings. It probably would have been better if I'd remembered to do that beforehand, but I managed to remember to do it in time. There we go. Just continue along around this edge. So I'm probably shoving my face in the way here, which I wouldn't want to do as I've currently got no makeup on, which is unusual for me, as I'm normally the eyeliner queen. But it was busy this morning. I only had the school run to do before I came back and did a couple of jobs. There we go. Get all the way around the edge. Now then, I wonder how long this will take to dry. Probably gives a clue on the bottle, doesn't it? I'll have a look in a minute. Oh, sorry if you can hear that. That's a neighbour's house alarm going off. Oh, I mean, I've turned it off already. Right. So I've got on the corner. You can see I've got odd little splats on my paper already. I always cover my desk in paper now. It just says allowed to dry completely. It says before wearing. Obviously it thinks it's going to go on clothes. Clean with soap and warm water. For high gloss and scuff protection, apply a coat of Angelus acrylic finisher or neutral leather paint after paint is dry. So that doesn't give you any clue on how long it'll take to dry. But I suppose it's very subjective. It depends how thickly, if I can get my words out, you've applied it. And what you applied it on. Maybe not all leathers dry the same. Now I'm hoping, because I'm not really changing the colour much. I mean, my planner was already turquoise, and this is turquoise. I'm hoping maybe I'll be able to get away with 2, do you think? Possibly 3 coats, and then say that jobs are good. And I'm just going back over that because I've gone a bit wide over the stitching. Oh, knock a bit of excess off. There we go. Sorry for that delay. Someone just called me. So I'm recording on my phone, so I had to take it off the frame. Sorry if you can see some orange dots. I tried to mark out on the washi, where my filming space was to make sure I stayed in the gap. I'm trying to use a slightly different filming setup today, and if it works I'll do a bit more of it in the future. There we go. I'm hoping by the time I've gone all the way around the edges I could start back again round here and get a second coat on, because my solo time alone. Hello, so I'm back. So I've just found out, annoyingly, my camera cut off before, so I'll do you a quick catch up. I've completed my 2 coats on this side and it's turned out really beautifully. I've managed to keep the stitching white. There's been a couple of odd parts where I've managed to catch the stitching, but I don't think you'd really notice unless you were looking. And I've now started on the inside. So far I've done the pen loop, just 1 coat. I started in on this side, so I'll be able to complete doing it this side now that I can push that down. And I've done one coat on this inside pocket. And then I'll have you along with me for the rest of the ride now, hopefully, if the camera doesn't decide to cut itself off again. So I'll try and be brief. But top tip, I found that if you are using a sponge, you shouldn't use what I was using without realising, a cosmetic sponge, because it flakes off bits. So we're going to be staying the rest of the way with this little brush here. Although I have to say, I did use the sponge on these bits for the, so that's my name label, and that's the book stop, and that has come up absolutely lovely. There we go. So let's get this inside pocket done. Oh. See this beautiful natural inside bit of the leather here. Now, how to get this inside bit of the pocket will be interesting. I don't think I'm going to really want to get too inside because I'm not going to want it to stick. But if I can get it right up to the edge, we'll be doing all right. And where it's already naturally going up, if I can just get it a little bit under. Oh, I'm getting the edges there. We'll be doing good. Why have I put the pot all the way over there? That doesn't make any sense. I'm going to keep trying to pop up intermittently now, just to make sure it's still recording. I've not had a chance to play it back yet, so I don't know which bits you've missed. But if I came up with any wise words that I think are worth repeating, I'll try and stick them up in text. There we go. Right. So I've just dabbed off the excess there just while I'm going close to the stitching. I've got this outside edge to finish going around, and I've got this edge to finish going around. And just while I'm holding that there, I'll keep it held down for a bit, just so that's got a chance to dry, and also then means I've got access to this edge when I get to there. I've got to admit, I was put off for ages about painting this. I was so intimidated. I didn't want to spoil the beautiful craftsmanship. But you get that itch, don't you? All planners seem to, don't we? Always want to tweak the system, tweak the supplies, keep playing. And that's what I got with this. And as I'm going to be on a no spend for a while, having had to unexpectedly buy a new washing machine, it's much more cost efficient for me to be buying a bit of leather paint than it is to be getting a new planner. Plus, I keep trying to tell myself to embrace a bit more of a minimalist attitude, being happy with what you've got. And it's not about things, or it's about having things that you love, rather than always seeking the new thing. sure that what you do spend is spent wisely on things that you love. And that's what my investment in this planner was, really. Right. I want to spin that around, and I just want to hold that pen loop down a bit longer just while that sets. Oh, I should have moisturised my hands before I went and started recording. We've had a really, well, a cold snap for Britain anyway. And I can always tell it something like that's coming because I've got really sensitive skin. The cold temperatures just suck all the moisture out my hands. No matter how much I moisturise them. So, I currently have the hands of a little old lady. Right. There we go, I'm going to have to let go of this pen loop and tick just while I do this spine bit. Right, let's have a... It's a little bit tacky, you can see it's come off, but it's not... Well, actually no, I do want to hold it a little bit longer. And then I'll have a peek and see if we're even recording or if I'm just a crazy woman talking to myself. Oh, look at all those beautiful creases. I love the stories travellers' notebooks tell about how they've been used. I think that's why I like them so much. They're beautiful, but they're so functional, and the whole purpose is to be used. I know not everybody likes to get their planners scuffed and everything else, and that's fine. But for me, I like the fact that they're supposed to gather the marks and the scuffs, and all just becomes part of that story. I can tell a little piece of your history in a way. But that's me speaking as a former history student, really. Right, I think I'm going to have to release it. Right, where was I? Oh, no, I was going to stand up and have a quick peek. Oh, we're still going. Excellent, eh? Right. Started recording before, and it turns out I think I painted for something like 15-20 minutes and it recorded 59 seconds. Hence there'll have been a great big leap in what we've done, and as you'll have tell as well, the lighting situation's changed a lot. I should probably be pointing this way, shouldn't I? Does that help? Or are you just being massively glared at now? There we are. Put a bit of excess off there. It is now night time, whereas when I started it, it was this morning. But I've had no time in between really to do any more work on this. So I'll get this coat finished and then let it set. And then I'll have to cover it with some finisher. And that'll just protect the paint a little bit from the bumps and scrapes it'll get while it's being used. Let's go all the way around this middle bit. Now you think it would take less time to do the middle, or the inside I should say, of the Traveller's Notebook, because there's less of it. But it's more fiddling. Fiddling? Fiddly. Although I suppose you could class what I'm doing as fiddling. Fiddling with a perfectly good Traveller's Notebook. Just because I fancied a slightly different colour. Oh, I know it doesn't bother most people, but it's really important to me to always get the precise shade for things. I'm known for work for colour coordinating everything, but it's just because I associate colours with certain people, certain topics or subjects. So when I'm colour coordinating, I shouldn't call it colour coordinating because it's not, it makes it sound like a fashion thing. When I'm organising by colour, the colours aren't chosen randomly. They're the colours that I associate with that particular person or topic, and I might tweak it if needs be to making it more productive. But there's always, I was going to say there's always a reason behind it, but it's not really reason, it's more intuition. For me, it makes me more productive because I can find information much easier if it's organised by colour. And it's more efficient to just use the colours that I naturally associate with topics and people, because then I can find it quicker. Which is a very long tangent for explaining why I'm tweaking the colour of this Traveller's Notebook. Are any of you like that? Do you all have a thing with colour, or do you find colour distracting? And you're much better with keeping things monochrome? Or are there particular colours you don't like? I've always struggled with like yellows and oranges. Although I think now I may have finally be coming to some peace with yellow. It just depends on the particular shade. I'll always much prefer my blues and greens. finish doing this pocket. And then we'll let it dry, 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 dry. And I won't make you watch that. It'd be a very sad state of affairs if you were sat watching a YouTube video literally of paint drying. Right, I want to make sure I just go lightly over this stamp because I want to try and keep the details. No, I keep naturally. I'm left-handed, but I've always been very ambidextrous, and it's one of those things that when I paint in colour, I've always naturally used both hands, but if I'm getting close to the stitching, I want to keep it with my left hand where I've got a bit more control. Right, I'll give you a pot update. 2 coats on the inside, and I'm just finishing off the 2 coats on the outside, finishing off my first coat on the inside, and we're doing okay with the paint. And this is an A5 planner. And I'm very pleased with how far this has gone. Oh, that's an actual bit. I don't want that there. Oh, now I'm spotting a bit where I've not quite managed to get up to the side up here. Makes such a difference having good lighting when you're doing this. Got to admit, it was easier first thing when I had natural light. Not that it looked like it on the video, because obviously we're in winter. So the little bit I did see playback was really dark. I wouldn't have thought I was next to a window on a relatively sunny morning. Well, it was once the fog lifted anyway. Oh, I can't wait to get this out and about. There we are, get this finished off, and I might even have time to do a bit of crafting while this dries. There we go. Now then, suppose I've already done those pockets earlier, hadn't I? I might be able to get a second coat on them. There's another sneaky bit. Plop you over there. Now in this light, this doesn't look like it needs a second coat, but I can remember doing it this morning and thinking it did. And if I've done a second coat everywhere else, might as well just do it for even coverage. Now this is going to get a lot of use, so I want to make sure it's got a decent amount of paint on it to stand up to it. There we go, right, I think we'll have to call it a night there. This will be where you probably can see some part I've missed. and you're shouting at the screen. Right. I'll put them to one side to dry. You know, I don't even think that's going to need a... That one's not going to need a second coat, but that's going to be right tucked at the back. And I'll tidy these all away. Right, hello, I'm actually recording this bit weeks later because, as you could probably hear from my voice, I've been sick. And obviously I still am sick, but I finally have enough voice left to finish this off. So I've applied 2 coats all over the planner, including the middle spine section, the pockets, although I'm looking at this section now and spotting a few gaps. Done the pen loop. I've managed to do it all right. There have been a couple of sections where I've managed to catch the threading, but it can't be that obvious because I'm looking at it now and nothing's leaping out at me. I'm really pleased with how it's turned out. Oh, there's a little small section. Now, obviously, I've used this planner, oh God, for ages before I decided to do this paint job. So the stitching has obviously had some wear and tear before that, but I'm fine with that. I like my planners to show what they've gone through. That's part of the joy for me. So to finish this off, I'm now going to apply this Angelus Satin Acrylic Finisher, which I got off Amazon. I figured I may as well stay with the same brand that I got the paint from. And I'm going to try it on a sponge. Now, this is a proper crafting sponge. I've used this before with like Tim Holtz stains and things like that. Before, when I was trying it with the paint, I was foolishly trying it with a sponge that is actually supposed to be for makeup, but I find it's really good for how many ums would I like to say in this sentence? For putting on distress stains. They work really nicely and they're flexible and a nice small size, whereas this one I had to actually buy in a great big, almost like an A4 pad. I think I got it from Hobbycraft. Maybe I've put a bit too much on this sponge. I think I may have been a tad heavy-handed with this. Now, strangely, the instructions on the bottle, I'll show you, weren't actually about the finisher at all. It was about applying the paint. And then right at the very end, it recommends that, you know, you may want to think about using a finisher on anything that you use leather paint on. And I am finding this. There we go. I think I've definitely covered all of those sections there, and I'll let that set. And then once that's dried, I'll do the inside. Right, well, I'm back for the final bit. You'll see now that I've finally finished applying the satin finisher to the planner. And this is how it looks, all done. Now, granted, I don't have the steadiest of hands, but I have managed to go all the way around the stitching. And I have to say, you can carefully scrape off any paint off the stitching, although you have to be mindful not to try and catch any paint on the planner. I'm going to actually apply a second coat of finisher to this just to make sure it's all sealed. But here it is. This is all in natural light. I also applied the finisher on the inside to the pen loop. I've put my Hobonichi in here so it's all snuggled in, and I've got my current journal in here, which is a Midori MD notebook, light. There's some pre-prepped pages there. I've put my bug stop back in place, all nicely coloured. I'm glad I went to the effort of painting the spine. Granted, you only get small glimpses of it, but it'd be one of those things that stood out. I didn't bother painting the edges because I love how they were already finished. And I've restrung it. I should say I had a choice of finishes, and the reason I went for the satin acrylic is because I didn't want a high gloss to the planner, and I debated about going for matte because I do love natural leather and the natural feel of it, but I thought there was going to be a shine, slight shine anyway with the paint, and I didn't want it to look, now sometimes paint can look a little bit waxy. I wasn't sure if it would end up looking like that, so I thought if I was going to have a finisher, I would rather it had just that slight gleam to it, rather than, like, you know, a high beam of gloss. There we go. So that's it. I'm declaring the job's a good 'un. Apart from obviously me reapplying one maybe final coat of finish just on the outside, because I am known for my uncoordination and hard-handedness with things. You may not need to take such precautions. As you can hear, my voice is still finally on the mend, and hopefully when I come back in my next video I may even sound like myself. So I'll say goodbye, wish you a good day, and if you've liked this video, please hit that thumbs up. It helps other people find the videos, and if you want to see more of my stuff, hit that subscribe button. Hope you have a fantastic day. Goodbye.